let's go ahead and get started. Since there are only a few of you again, go ahead and put your name down there underneath the 2030-02. We are picking up, I believe, beginning of Act 3. Did we get into Act 3 at all the other day? Does anybody remember? I've got the sticky note on 1279, but so Act 3 opens. It's a room in the castle, and the king and queen, Polonius, Ophelia, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern are all there. And the king asks Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, "What have you found out? Do you know what Hamlet's problem is?" Okay? And Rosencrantz says, line 5, he does confess he feels himself distracted, but from what cause will by no means speak. Okay? Guildenstern, nor do we find him forward to be sounded. We don't find him receptive to be questioned, is what that means. But with a crafty madness keeps aloof when we would bring him on to some confession of his true state. Queen, did he receive you well? That is, did he act like his old self or, old buddies kind of a thing? He says, yes, of course. The queen, did you assay him? Top of the next page, line 154, 155. Excuse me, 14 or 15. Did you assay him to any pastime? Did you prove him or try him to do anything he used to like to do? Okay. He says, there were some players that came in, and Hamlet got all excited about that. And they're like, good, that's good. It'll take him out of himself. The king, in fact, says, it pleases me much. It doth much content me to hear him so inclined. Okay? So, he says, good gentlemen, that is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, give him a further edge, or nudge him along. Push him in this direction. All right? They say, we shall. King then says to Gertrude, leave us to, we've sent closely for Hamlet hither, that he is toward by accident may here affront Ophelia. That is, we've secretly sent for Hamlet so that it'll be like an accident he's confronted by Ophelia. All right? We will so bestow ourselves, line 33, that seeing unseen, we may of their encounter frankly judge. Seeing unseen. We will see Hamlet and Ophelia, but they won't see us. But if they're going to be able to see Hamlet and Ophelia and listen to this conversation, then everything that's going to happen in that scene is witnessed by Claudius and Polonius. All right? Queen says, I shall obey you. And she says, and Ophelia, I do wish that your beauties be the happy cause of Hamlet's wildness. In other words, Ophelia, I hope it's because you're so drop-dead gorgeous that Hamlet has gone crazy. Why? Because just as Polonius told you to remove yourself from Hamlet's presence, what can he do? He can say, go back into Hamlet's presence. Okay? Come sign it. Why? So shall I hope your virtues will bring him to his wonted way again, to both your honors. What might Gertrude be suggesting there that goes against what both Polonius and Laertes told Ophelia? Laertes said it first, and then Polonius did. What did they both tell Ophelia about Hamlet?
He doesn't really love her.
Louder?
That he doesn't really love her.
That he doesn't really love her, and out of her league. Right? Because he's prince. She's not a princess. They said, his star is above yours. What might Gertrude be saying? No, he's not. He can marry you. Gertrude kind of seems to be for it. If the queen is for it, guess what? It's gonna happen, okay? Happy mama, happy husband, happy life, kind of a thing. So, Polonius tells her, 43, Ophelia, walk you here. That is, it's like he takes her and puts her right there. Here's where I want you to walk. Gracious, so please you, we will bestow ourselves. Gracious is referring to the king. Let's hide. Where are they going? When he first brought up this idea, where did he say they would position themselves? Behind an arras. So you've got a curtain on the stage, or at the back of the stage, covering the doorways, the entrances and exits to the tiring house. I think they go and stand behind that curtain. Does the curtain go all the way down to the floor, and thus hiding their feet? Or do their feet stick ever so slightly out? Or do their feet, their toes, push the bottom of the curtain out a little bit? So that if you look at it, you see the curtain's all straight, and then it's kind of bumped out at the bottom, and go, why is that? So, he goes on and says, Ophelia, read on this book. Why? That show of such an exercise may color your loneliness. That is, so that your face will kind of look sad and dejected. You know, your only pleasure in life now is to walk around with this little book because Hamlet no longer loves you. All right? He says, we are oft to blame in this. 'Tis too much proved. What's the this? It's what comes after too much proved. That with devotion's visage and pious action, we do sugar o'er the devil himself. Never thought about this until literally just now. What's he telling Ophelia to do when she walks around with that book? What is she really doing? It's one of the things that I listed over here one day as one of the themes of the play. She's acting. She's pretending to be dejected in Polonius's direction. Okay? Now look at those lines again. We are oft to blame in this. That is, we are often worthy of blame. That with devotion's visage, that is, facial expression, in pious action, right behavior, okay? So devotion is faith, pious action, good works. So you have two major theological issues of the time in which Shakespeare lived. How do you get saved? Catholic Church, good works. Protestants, faith. One of the mottos of the Protestant Reformation was sola fides, faith alone, nothing else. All right? In a couple days, we're going to go into probably spend 15, 20 minutes. Protestant Reformation, history, theology, and all that kind of stuff. All right? So, devotion's visage and pious action, we do what? We sugar over the devil himself. Now, he brings that up, in connection with what? With what he wants Ophelia to do. That is almost his description of what Ophelia is doing. She will sugar over the devil himself. Sugarcoat. Well, where's the devil? Ophelia's not the devil. Ophelia's not possessed. Don't go all weird, you know. Where is the quote-unquote devil, the evil in each person? It's inside, right? And he's saying we can do what with that dark inside? We can paper it over and make it look good. We can make it look pretty. We can make it look like Ophelia. Interesting when you think about that. Because what is Ophelia's entire reason for being here in this scene right now? What is she going to do? Remember, Polonius said, I will set loose my daughter on him. She's the bait for Hamlet to walk into the trap. She's also one of the observers, one of the spies. Okay? She and Hamlet, in just a few moments, are going to talk about deceiving. Hamlet's going to say, I deceived you. She's going to say, I was the more deceived. And yet, in that scene, what is she doing to Hamlet? She's deceiving him. In fact, she comes out and gives a bald-faced lie straight to his face. Okay? So, his passage, with devotions, visits, and pious action, we do sugar over the devil himself. The king gives it a sign. The audience hears it. Nobody on the stage does. Oh, 'tis too true. How smart a lash that speech doth give my conscience. It makes him go, ow. Damn, that hurt. The harlot's cheek beautied with plastering art. Plastering art. Makeup. He's not saying the makeup is designed to make the harlot more beautiful and more seductive and sexy. Harlot, prostitute. No. The harlot's cheek, beautified with plastering art, is not more ugly to the thing that helps it than is my deed to my most painted word. He's saying the plastering art is what makes the hooker look attractive. Because what's inside isn't attractive. And he said, that's the same thing. It's not more ugly than my deed. What's his deed? Killing his brother, sleeping with his brother's wife. Then my deed is to my most painted word. Listen to a politician who gets in trouble, or a businessman who gets in trouble. And what will they try to do? Issue all kinds of words that are excuses that kind of help justify what it is he or she may have done. Okay? So, Polonius and the king withdraw. Where do they withdraw to? The king has said, we will, seeing unseen. We'll see all this, we'll hear all of this, but we won't be seen. Within the kind of the metaphysics of a stage, if you step off the stage, so to speak, you're no longer part of the play. Now, one of the things they do at Shakespeare's Globe, and I've seen other acting troupes do this at other places. One of the things they will often do, and they do this a lot at Shakespeare's Globe, is they have action occur off the stage. People will come in from the middle of the yard, where the groundlings stand. Okay? And they'll say lines as they're approaching, because one of the things they're doing there is kind of breaking the fourth wall, so to speak, but they're also saying, all the world's the stage, as Shakespeare says in the Henry V, As You Like It play. Okay? So that even where the audience is becomes part of the stage. But that's not done in Hamlet. In Hamlet, it's like the four walls that encompass this room. This is the stage. Okay? So where's Ophelia? Here's the stage. Door, okay? Hamlet enters. Where's Ophelia? She is somewhere in that location. Maybe she's here. So that she's at the furthermost extent of the stage when Hamlet comes in. Like they know where Hamlet's going to come in, right? Because we're told Hamlet's been secretly sent for. And I think that kind of implies they know where he's going to enter, because the stage at that point becomes what? It's supposed to be this big lobby, like this long gallery, okay? Hamlet comes in. Does Hamlet see Ophelia when he enters the stage? We're not given any stage direction. All we're told is enter Hamlet. See, whether or not Hamlet sees Ophelia, in one sense, okay, very, very big hedging there, in one sense, colors what you think Hamlet is doing in this speech. I think everything Hamlet says, from 2 to the end of the scene, it's all an act. Hamlet knows what's going on. He walks out, and I think he glances, and he sees Ophelia. And remember, he was secretly sent for. He sees Ophelia, and he knows the jig is up. He's being watched. Okay? To be or not, the so-called greatest soliloquy in the English language. It's not a soliloquy, because Ophelia is on the stage. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. Notice how to be or not to be gets expanded into what? To go on living and suffering the crap of this life, or to take arms against those troubles and end them. How do you take arms against those troubles? Blow your brains out, overdose on poison, overdose on drugs, stab yourself, throw yourself in front of a moving train, any of 1,000 different ways you can commit suicide. That's the point. Keep suffering or kill yourself. To die, to sleep, no more. What's the no more? Is that to sleep no more? Because once you're dead, you don't sleep? It's the no more. Nothing else. Pain, gone. Why does he bring up sleep? Going back probably thousands of years, sleep is what? It's an image of death. You'll see, some of you probably still will, go out trick-or-treating and people have, Halloween decorations. And you'll see a tombstone that'll have R.I.P. in it. Rick. Does that mean some dude named Rick died? Nope. What's it mean? Requiescat in pacem. Rest in peace. The rest there, it means sleep. Sleep in peace. But this is a sleep you don't wake up from. Okay, it's the sleep of death. To die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep to say we end the heart. Notice the first thing he mentions in terms of the pains, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. To say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. The first pain is heart pain. What is Hamlet's first heart pain within the play? What happened before the play began? His father died. That's the first heart pain. What's the second heart pain that occurs within the play? Ophelia says, I don't want your letters anymore. I don't want your cards. I don't want your songs. I don't want your poems. Take them all back. Oh, and don't come bother me anymore. I'm blocking you, on her phone. I'm moving. I'm changing the locks. She totally breaks off any communication with Hamlet. She does that. And now Hamlet walks out there, and there she is. And he's been sent for. This is why I think Hamlet knows something is going on. Okay? The heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks. What are the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to? Life. Physical pain. For some reason, woke up this morning, and I swear my eyes are not working right. Every now and then, it's like my eyes are zoom lenses, and some of you go, you know, it's kind of weird, okay? Pain, shoulders, knees, ankles, all that kind of stuff. To end all that, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. Consummation. Anybody know what Christ's final words were? Hanging on the cross.
Well, I thought his final words was when you looked over and he said, in a few moments we'll be in paradise.
It's just after that. The thief says, remember me, Lord, when you come into your kingdom. And he says, today you will be with me in paradise. And his final words are, in Latin, consummatum, consummation, est. It is finished. Okay? A lot of people interpret that to mean he just goes, oh, finally, the pain is over. Now I'm dead. And he dies. Okay? It's not what it means. The consummatum means it's perfected. Everything is as it should be. In other words, the goal, the plan was achieved. It is a consummation devoutly, that's like religious beliefly, to be wished. What's the consummation? Death. To be done with the pain of this life. Okay? To die, to sleep. He's already said that. Why is he repeating himself? To die, to sleep. To sleep. And it's almost like the second to sleep, or the third, if you want to put it that way, he realizes, what do you do when you sleep? What do most people do when they sleep? They dream. Do dead people dream? No. Brains, But if we're going to follow that image, which is what Hamlet's doing, to sleep, perchance to dream. That is, maybe to dream. Aye, there's the rub. Why is that the rub? Remember what he told Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? I could be a king of infinite space, bounded in a nutshell. Except for what? I have bad dreams. And they go on to talk about the dreams are the substance of the shadow, blah, blah, blah. Okay? There's the rub. Meaning, that's the fly in the ointment. That's the glass that you're walking over barefoot. That's the problem. The dreaming. Why? For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. In that sleep of death, the dreams that we might have, those who would think of this door as the entrance to death, suicide. What dreams are out there? What if I go through and what's out there is worse than what's in here? There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. It's the respect, the thinking of what comes after death that makes such a long life calamitous. Because what is going to happen the longer you live? If a child lives for 5 days and then dies, how much quote unquote suffering is that child going to have? 5 days worth. But let's say that child lives to be 100 years old, not days old. How much suffering? Think of somebody who died 20 years ago, 2002, who lived 100 years, was born in 1902. Think of the events that person's life went through. World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, Korean War, Vietnam. I mean, just slings and arrows, right? There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. Why? For who would bear the whips and scorns of time? What does time do to all things? It wears them down. You know, at some point in time, the Smoky Mountains, which direction am I? Wherever they are, east of us, were like the Rocky Mountains. A long, long time ago. So why are the Smoky Mountains not like the Rocky Mountains today? Because the Smoky Mountains are much, they're the oldest mountain range in the United States. The Rocky Mountains are the youngest mountain range in the United States. They're actually still pushing upwards because of plate tectonics and all that. Smoky Mountains have been worn down over time. Time devours all things. So who would bear the whips and scorns of time? So that's the first thing. Time beats us down. The oppressor's wrong. Whatever the oppressor is. You know, this is 2022, 5 years ago. Most of you in this classroom probably would have said, actually more like 10 years ago, would have said, it's the 1%, you know, the Occupy Wall Street stuff. Now it's, you know, I don't know what. Whatever your boogeyman is. Whatever the oppressor is, the oppressor's wrong. The proud man's contumely. That is the arrogant SOBs looking down his nose at you. The person who thinks they're so much better than you. Okay? The pangs of despised love. And again, if I were directing, I would tell the actor playing Hamlet, when you say the pangs of despised love, look at Ophelia. Make the audience know. Make the audience see the connection. Because it's despised love. It's not lost love. Like his father's lost love. It's she now, from Hamlet's perspective, because she's returned everything he gave her. You know, it's bad enough to break up, right? But it's doubly bad if everything you've given somebody is returned. Because what does that essentially mean? Where is it? It's not here. It means I'm erasing you. It's as if you never were. That's pretty cold, right? So, pangs of despised love. The law's delay. There's a phrase, justice delayed. What's the rest of it? Is justice denied. Okay? It's why the Constitution requires a timely trial. You can't just be locked up and thrown in prison for years without ever getting your trial. Though it has happened. It does happen regularly. It's happening right now. The law's delay, the insolence of office. What's office? People in some kind of authority, like political office. And the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes. When he himself. So who would endure all these things? Notice it's just like he's checked off a bucket list of these problems that he's experienced. Okay? Or that people experience. Let's put it that way. Who would do all this when he himself might his quietus, his death, his end, make with a bare bodkin? That's a knife. A little dagger. Because what can you do with a little dagger? Blade doesn't need to be more than 4 inches or so. You can stab yourself right in the heart. You can stab yourself in the carotid artery. You can. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways with a little short blade. Who would fardels? Fardels means burdens. Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? But then the dread of something after death. And then he gives us an appositive for death. And a positive is a phrase that gives additional information about something that has just been said. The undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns. That's death. That's where they get the name for the Star Trek movie. The undiscovered country, okay? It's the undiscovered country from whose bourne, from whose place, no one returns. Read life after death stories. Pull them up on YouTube. There's tons of them, okay? What do the people never actually say? Someone who's been dead for 10 minutes, you know? They'll talk about, I saw myself, or rephrase that. I saw my body, and I got farther and farther away from it. And then I was in a place of darkness, and then I saw a light, and I started going to the light, and it stops. And I found myself back in my body, and I woke up. What they never do is open the door, go completely through it, close the door, and say, hey, look around. There's Mom. There's Grandpa. Or, look, there's the goat guy with the horns and the tail and the pitchfork. And never do you get today those kinds of experiences. He says, we don't know what it's like. No traveler returns. Okay, so what does all that do? The dread of something after death, that's the subject. Then we get the verb phrase, puzzles the will. What does it do if it puzzles? There's an election coming up. Hopefully you'll all vote. Don't give a rat's, you know what, who you vote for. Hopefully you'll all vote. But what happens if you get in there and you're in front of the little box thing and you suddenly don't know who/what to vote for? Your will has been puzzled at that point. It might be because you look up and it shows, you know, where you think there should only be 2 or 3 names, and there's 20 or 30, like presidential elections. You walk in the thing, you know who the Democrat is, you know who the Republican is, you might know who the Green Party can, and then there's like 30 other people. And it's the Banana Lovers Party and the Communist Party of America and the Democratic Social. If you're not aware, it's like, well, I don't know, who should I vote for? Okay, that's what he's getting at. The dread of what comes after puzzles the will, stops it dead in its tracks. Okay? And makes us rather bear those ills we have, the proud man's contumely, the insolence of office, the broken heart, etc., than fly to others that we know not of. What's the phrase today? Like when you have to make a choice between someone you know that's flawed and someone you don't know anything about? Better the devil you know than the one you don't know. Okay, because at least you know what you're going to get with this one. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. Now remember, who is listening? Specifically, who is listening? Is she? I mean, we know Ophelia's on the stage. She's supposedly reading the book. Is she kind of reading the book going, trying to lean over and hear as much as she can? Possibly. Who else do we know? Seeing unseen. Polonius and Claudius. They're hearing all of this. Okay? Now listen to what Hamlet says. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought in enterprises of great pitch and moment. With this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. That's a nice, fancy, flowery, rhetorical way of saying Conscience makes us do what? Not do the thing we resolved to do. So what's this native hue of resolution? Have any of you ever had to stop and get out on a road and push your car off to the side of the road? I have before. Guess what happens to your face when you do that? Anybody have to move, lift, push a really heavy weight? Pick somebody up who's fainted? Something like that? What happens? Your face gets all tense. And when your face gets all tense because your whole body is tensing, all this blood rushes to it. You turn red. That's the native hue of resolution. It's not literal, okay? It's not literal. He doesn't mean everybody's face immediately turns red when they resolve to do something. It's when you resolve to do something, what do? It's like getting ready to fight. You plant your feet. You know what's going to come. So you set yourself for it. That's the native hue of resolution. And what does conscience do? It takes that native hue and it is sicklied over with the pale cast of thought. What's the thought? What enters the mind after one makes that decision? It's like I'm about to buy a car. Really, really, really great car. Worth, when it was originally sold, about $65,000 for 10 grand. It's got hardly any miles on it. It's the result of a divorce. And part of me still goes, nah, shouldn't do it. It's a scam. There's something. That's what Hamlet's talking about. Only difference is, what is his enterprise of great pitch and moment? He's not buying a stupid car. What's he been thinking of since the end of Act 1? Kill Claudius. He will wipe all saws, all memories, everything, and replace it with one thing. Kill Claudius. And now what's happening? His conscience is kicked into gear. How do we know? What did he say at the end of Act 2? He met the players. He said, I'm going to come up with some lines for you to do. And he tells us, I don't know if this ghost was from heaven or from hell. Maybe it wasn't a ghost. Maybe it was a demon designed to tempt me to hell. What's he doing there? Rationalizing. He's thinking. What do you not do when you want to get revenge? Yeah, you turn off the brain and you just go find the bastard and kill him, or her, if in the case, okay? You just do it. You know, follow Nike as your goddess and just do it, okay? Enterprises of great pitch with this regard, because of thinking about them, their currents, notice a current goes one way, okay? Their currents turn awry. You shift the focus and lose the name of action. And then, soft you now. See, and I think when he says, soft you now, he speaks louder. Maybe Ophelia doesn't hear what he said previously. But now this is his way of going, yo, Ophelia, look who's here. The fair Ophelia, nymph. What's a nymph? A river or stream goddess, okay? In thy orisons be all my sins remembered. Now, a lot of people read that and they go, well, that's weird. He's telling Ophelia, now when you pray to Jesus, say, hey, Jesus, remember Hamlet's lechery. Remember Hamlet's, lying nature. Remember Hamlet's pride. Remember, it's not what he means. He means, when you pray for me and my sins. Like, forgive Hamlet, Lord, for, and then go on and list them. Okay? Good, my Lord, how does your honor for this many a day? Why does she ask him that? because this is the first time they've seen each other since she obeyed her father's direction and closed the door. Hamlet, I humbly thank you. Well, well, well. I'm doing great. My Lord, I have remembrances of yours that I have longed to redeliver. I pray you now receive them. Now, what does she do? Now, if Polonius gave her a book, I think she has in that book the remaining letters and cards and notes that Hamlet wrote for her. And she pulls them out and she does this. Take them all back. Hamlet, not me, never gave you aught. My honored Lord, you know right well you did. And with them, words of so sweet breath composed has made the things more rich. In other words, damn Hamlet, man, you can write a nice note. Oh, just makes me flutter thinking about it. Their perfume lost. Your words are no longer sweet to me. Why? Why do they no longer have their perfume? Because her brother and her father de-perfumed them. She thought when Hamlet originally composed those letters that he really meant every word he said. And they made her think Hamlet meant what? Let's jump into bed. That's all he wanted. Their perfume lost, take them back. For to the noble mind rich gifts wax poor when givers prove unkind. She's just said, you have proven unkind. That means both not nice and unnatural. Unnatural how? In the sense that what you said was real love wasn't real love. You lied to me. You just want to get my pants. There. And she hands him. Hamlet. Ha! Are you honest? Look at your gloss. What's it mean? Meaning truthful and chaste. Protecting your virginity. Okay? One can also be chaste in marriage. That is, you're having sex in marriage, but not anything else. Not anything else. Not anyone else. If you're having sex with anything else, you need to see somebody. Are you honest? My Lord? So notice, it has those two meanings. Are you fair? Meaning, are you beautiful? Okay? Or your gloss also says just or honorable. Those are two meanings for the word fair, but fair does also mean beautiful. So are you honest? Are you trustworthy or truthful and chaste? Are you fair? Are you just, honorable, and beautiful? What means your lordship? In other words, what the hell are you talking about? That if you be honest and fair, if you be trustworthy, truthful, chaste, just, honorable, beautiful, your honesty, your chastity, should admit no discourse to your beauty. And your gloss says for discourse, intercourse. Bad choice of words. Because most people, when we use the word intercourse today, they only think of sex. Doesn't mean that. It means conversation, go-between, communication, right? So what's he mean? Your chastity should not be a go-between, okay, to your beauty. You shouldn't use your chastity as a, seduction trick? Could beauty, my lord, have better commerce than with honesty? And what she means by that is, whoa. Let's think about this. Shouldn't beauty really go hand in hand with chastity? Shouldn't what is beautiful also be chaste? Whether chaste in a single sense or chaste in a married sense. Hamlet, yes, you're right. For the power of beauty will sooner transform honesty, truthfulness, chastity, from what it is, truthfulness, chastity, to a bawd. We've seen that word before. To a pimp, a procurer of flesh. Then the forceful honesty can translate beauty into his likeness. Go back again. The power of beauty, good looks, sexiness, if you want, will do what? It will transform chastity into a seller of sex. Or a giver, if you want. The Old English verb from which we get modern English to sell, okay, is the verb sell on. In Old English, it didn't mean to give in exchange for money. It meant just to give. Okay? So, the power of beauty will sooner transform honesty from what it is to a bawd than the force or power of honesty, truthfulness, chastity, can translate beauty into his likeness. This was once a paradox, sometime a paradox. He says, now, time gives it proof. In other words, look around you and look at the history of humanity. I did love you once. Why? Because her beauty seduced him, attracted him. I noticed, did once. Why not just say, I did love you? Period. End of sentence. Why add the once? It's emphatic. Once, not anymore. I don't love you, is essentially what he's saying. Indeed, my Lord, you made me believe so. So she believed that he loved her. Is Ophelia telling us anything about her?
I don't think she felt it back.
You don't or do? Hold on to that. Just hold on to that. You should not have believed me. Why? For virtue cannot so inoculate our old stock, but we shall relish of it. I loved you not. What's an inoculation? How do you inoculate somebody? There's all kinds of talk today about, being inoculated. It's really Orwellian. Being inoculated against disinformation or misinformation. You can't. You can't inoculate against misinformation or disinformation. Inoculation is not the same as vaccination. Okay? What's the purpose of a vaccine? Don't think COVID, by the way. Okay? The Pfizer, Moderna, those vaccines, they're not real, true vaccines. They're not like the polio vaccine or the measles, mumps, and rubella, the MMR vaccine. Why not? What's the difference between the polio and the MMR vaccines and, let's say, the COVID vaccine?
They give you a dose of the virus if you don't believe it.
And can you get polio if you've been vaccinated against polio? No. No, you can't. You can't get measles, mumps, or rubella. The current head of the CDC has been vaccinated 4 times against COVID. She has it, I think, for her 3rd time. None of those vaccines are true vaccines. What they do is they lessen the severity of the disease when you get it. They won't stop you from getting it. A real vaccine stops you from getting that disease. So how is that different from an inoculation? An inoculation, and by the way, with a real vaccine, like the polio vaccine, you're injected with dead, essentially, polio virus. That's what causes the antibodies. It's dead. You can't get it from the vaccine, okay? An inoculation was when you were given an injection of live virus of a disease. So it gave you that disease, and you got the illness. That was designed, you would be given a very, very small amount. And I don't mean small amount like, you got a syringe and you're only given this much as opposed to this much. I mean, the amount of the virus that's in there is minuscule, and there's all kinds of fillers. So that you would get a slight dose, a slight version of it, okay? So that your body would then create the antibodies and such. So what's he talking about with the being inoculated? Well, your gloss tells you, don't think inoculate, think graft. Horticulture term. So you have a tree. I have an eraser here. You have a tree, and the tree has a stump and it's got stems going out, okay? I have a tree at home like this. It's colloquially called a fruit cocktail tree. The tree trunk and everything, if I remember correctly, is a peach tree, okay? One of the branches that comes off produces, so supposedly hasn't yet, tree's like 10 years old, produces peaches. It's got two others grafted onto it. One's a plum and one's an apricot. So this one tree is supposed to produce 3 different kinds of fruit. Because you take this branch that's coming out of the stalk, out of the trunk, and you do this. You cut this part off, you put a notch into it, and then you get another branch, cut the same way, stick them together, wrap tape around them, and this branch will grow totally into this tree and will live and produce. Okay? So, he says, virtue cannot so inoculate or graft. So here's virtue, the old stock. What's the old stock? Virtue cannot so inoculate our old stock, but we shall relish of it. The old stock is what St. Paul calls the old Adam. Again, this is Shakespeare's most religious play. He's throwing in all kinds of religious ideas, Christian ideas, right? What's the old Adam? Unredeemed humanity. Okay? Sinful humanity. The new Adam, Christ, and those who follow and become Christians and such. What happens, so to speak, to them? Baptism and all that kind of stuff, they're regenerated. They are now a new Adam. Why? Because they've had a new part grafted on. That's what he's getting at. Virtue, Christianity, let's say, he says, cannot so inoculate, so overcome this, but what? Think of the minister's black veil. What does he preach about? His first sermon when he wears the veil. Anybody remember? Secret sin. Every one of those people in that church, in that meeting house, is quote unquote a Christian. They are redeemed, saved, if you want. And yet, each one of them has what? Something they go, this is mine. I'm not going to give it up to God. Why? Because it's something about their sinful past that they treasure. Something they won't give up. That's his point. Virtue, proper living, believing, can't wipe this away. We relish it. Okay? And that's why he then says, I loved you not. I was the more deceived. Why does she say I was the more deceived? Why doesn't she just say I was deceived? The more? I think she's implying, and I loved you too. His very next speech. We have just about a minute. get thee to a nunnery. What? Why? Why go to a nunnery? Why does Theseus give Hermia the option of going to a nunnery too? What's going to happen if she does? She will forever swear off the company of men, right? And sex. He says, know your blood. What's Hamlet suggesting? Don't have sex. Okay? We'll stop there. Still too far behind. 50 minutes to cover less than 3 pages. All right, so we're a little behind. We'll get caught up.